What is up, y'all? Snipes and Snarflats, your unauthorized place for Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and we've even been known to dabble in a little Fox, much like Disney itself. But that is not why we're here today. Y'all all know we're here today for Frozen 2, the sequel to the biggest animated film of all time. We're not going to talk about Lion King because they said that was going to be live action, and they called it live action for so long that I'm just not accepting that that should be the one that tops my animated films. Even though it is animated, if we're going to call it what it is, we got to call it what it is. If y'all want to try to call that live action to me, don't call it animated just when you beat some records. So, here we go. Frozen 2, but first I kind of want to set the stage for Frozen itself because I was not the biggest fan. And that sounds weird considering that Frozen 2 has been just throughout the year, it has become at least one of my top 5, maybe in my top 3 most anticipated movies this year. I've been dying for this since I've seen the previews. And like I said, that's weird because I wasn't the biggest Frozen fan. And I chalked that up to not the fact that I thought it was a bad movie, because the more I watch it, the more I liked it. I loved Olaf from the first time I saw it. I thought Olaf was one of the most hilarious characters ever. And that said, I think it was everyone's feelings about the movie. Like, I mean, people didn't even want to accept that story-wise, yeah, Hans was the villain, but let's face it, Elsa was the antagonist, story-wise, and no one really wanted to see that, so I kept having to over-explain myself sometimes to people, and it was really frustrating because of the reasons why I didn't like it. I mean, personally, I thought Big Hero 6 and Tangled, which came out around the same time, were better movies at the time, but that's neither here nor there because that's what got us here. And I say that's what got us here because I just walked out of Frozen 2 and I cannot believe, even anticipated as I was for this movie, it not only met those anticipations, it exceeded them for me. I thought this movie was far beyond its predecessor, just far beyond it let it go. It let its predecessor go is what it did, because this movie was amazing. And I'm going to be talking about this in some ways I've never really talked about some of these animated films we've talked about so far, and that's because I've never been that impressed with this 3D animation thing, this CGI computer animation thing. I'm big on 2D, hand-drawn, classic animation. That's always been my thing. It takes so much to make that happen, you know what I'm saying? And I've always respected it as an art form because of all the different things you could do. And to me, CGI computer animated cartoons, they always tend to look the same. This one, however, I couldn't help but go in noticing all the little idiosyncrasies they paid attention to. You know what I'm saying? Like little things like reflections and the way things hang and hairs. And we're to the point right now where things have gotten so just realistic in CGI that if we take one step further, we're going to be on the cusp like Lion King was, and we're going to be wondering whether we're to call this live action or whether we're to call this animation. You know, I mean, that was a weird conversation everyone kept saying. Is this really live action or is this animated too? And I have a feeling that's the conversation we'll be having if we go past where we're at in Frozen 2, because ever since Moana, I've been noticing all these little extra things, you know what I'm saying, that they're just so good. They made water perfect throughout Moana, like just perfect. I couldn't believe it. And then they've been building on it ever since, and every little things here and there are just amazing throughout this movie. The water, the ice, the permafrost, like they've got so many little layers to this that I just couldn't help but keep paying attention to. Not to mention the little humanity things, like from the time this movie started, I was just lost in its animation. I was lost in how realistic everything was, and they really get you going on this. I was expecting what we saw in the previews. I was expecting an action-adventure film already. But if you don't go into this with your whodunit thinking cap, and you go into this just enjoying the ride, there's some great twists and turns throughout this movie. The music was amazing. Oh, the feeling is so much there. Multiple times you'll feel yourself start to swell up, if not just full out lose it, like many people in the audience did last night. And I mean, it's funny. It's got the music is great, and what they did with the musical numbers. I don't want to go into any spoilers because, like I said, there's a lot of twists and turns, and there's some parts that if I prep you for it, it might not be as funny as it is when you really just get into it and you see it from there. Because, oh man, this movie has got some really funny moments sprinkled throughout a real serious, touching action-adventure story. Like I said, it's got some twists and turns. Don't go in there with your thinking cap and go in there like your kids. And it don't only have twists and turns, it has some phenomenal actual surprises to it and things that you really weren't expecting. And the thing I think I wasn't expecting the most throughout the previews is when you see this action-adventure story play out, I kept telling myself that this is not the princess movie we left in the beginning. This is a whole different thing all of a sudden, and it really was. But the thing that surprised me was, in all of that, it still managed to come full circle and right around to its predecessor and really, really need Frozen itself to make the sequel work. And I think that's what it did so beautifully. That and the fact that every single character in the movie that you care about, I don't care who it is, Olaf, Kristoff, Anna, Elsa, the Sven, all of them wind up building onto themselves and getting more just story added to them and their characters developed that much more. And I think that added so much to why this is such a great sequel. Like I said, many times I've never had a sequel that outdoes its predecessor in my eyes as much as this movie outdid its predecessor. I mean, and it's very aware of itself. There's scenes in the movie where it is aware of its progression, and I think that's great too, because it even knows the music is. You had Let It Go, and Let It Go was stuck in everyone's kid's head for years, and you were tired of hearing them screaming and this and that. It's not like that with the songs in this movie are beautiful. I can't think of one throwaway song in this movie except for the one that you have to have video to go with, because it makes it just that much better of a song. But like I said, great movie, a great Lord of the Rings-esque, Hobbit-esque, Willow-esque action-adventure to it. I think that's what I loved the most. It felt like I was taken to another place, and you really get wrapped up and care about all of this. I want to see a third. I've actually thought about things that they didn't tell me in 2 that I think they're waiting for. I want to see 3, and I didn't even know if I wanted to see 2 until I saw the preview. But there's some new characters that get involved. You've seen the water horse, the knock thing. It's beautifully animated. Oh my God, so beautifully animated. This little guy right here, I bought this little guy just because I thought he was cute. He's not only cute, he's one of the coolest things in modern animation for a long time. And if he was real, he'd be one of my favorite little pets. Sorry, Remy the dog. I love you too, but this little guy is awesome. Anyway, if you can't tell, and I kind of sum it up totally, I loved this movie. I cannot wait to own this movie and see this movie again and again. And I think, honestly, the only catch back to me is that I've got to watch Frozen to get to Frozen 2, because it's going to feel like just a long interlude to just one great action-adventure film. But if you liked Frozen, I would go see this movie. If you loved Frozen, you've already seen this movie. But if you liked or tolerated Frozen, go see Frozen 2. You will not be disappointed. I was very, very impressed by what I saw, and I would highly recommend this to folks who just love action-adventure. You almost don't even need Frozen, because you get one of the greatest retellings ever put in a movie next to the Michael Pena in the Ant-Man movies. This retelling that you get in this is just great. Just great. You will laugh through the whole retelling, and it gives you every single thing you need to know to go forward, even if you decided screw Frozen 2, you didn't want to go see it. So, like I said, I enjoyed this. I think everyone will enjoy this. I think people who wasn't even fans of that original Frozen will love this movie, because it's just that good. Like I said, the music's great. You'll highly enjoy this. You will not let yourself down going to see this film. But that's all I'm going to say about this. Give it through the weekend. I'm going to let myself think about it. Like I said, everybody did great in this movie. All the voice acting was just so on point, so much emotion. And I'll break this down a lot more when I write about it because I can actually sit and take some time. So I'll write out a full review. It'll probably come out Sunday. That's usually Sunday. If I really put a lot into it, it's going to come out Monday. I'm not 100% sure. I got a lot of real work going on, which is taken away from me doing this here. So that's why you've only really seen me in movie reviews. But I've got a plan for the show to come back. I got a plan for the show to come back even better. And I'm going to touch on that probably here in the next couple months. I'll put out a video to where I'll really describe where we're at and where we're going from there. You know what I'm saying? So, that's really it for this one. Pay close attention to what comes in the future. Hit us up on the website. Hit us up on Instagram. Hit us up on everything. I know I've not been the biggest presence. I've been distracted by a lot of things, y'all. And I promise I'm trying to get my poop together. And I'm trying to come to y'all and give y'all some full, just get really back into where I was when I really started this. So hit us on Instagram, even though there hasn't been anything posted in a while. Get on there so you know what's coming. Get on the website. Mainly get us on Facebook and Twitter so you know when these videos drop and you know when anything I write to the website drops. But all that will be in the links as always. So go down there in the links and subscribe to that. And also, hit me up in the comments after you see this. I really want to know if people are loving this as much as me. I don't want to know if you loved it. I want to know what you really thought about this in comparison to the original. So, definitely hit us up in the comments. Let me know. I love going back and forth with y'all. And I do not really have a quote to sign off on this time. So, make sure to go back in the comments after you take your trip into the unknown.